even though our material should not be generating because it's already been all the organics and moisture baked out of it. If we have to size reduce, we use the kitchen sink. We have a mortar and pedestal. We have a, looks like a meat tenderizer if you look at the bottom of it. And then we have a coffee grinder that grinds the plutonium up into smaller enough particles to pass through a 10 mesh screen. This is our blender. Put the can in. It's a basically a pharmaceutical blender. It came from overseas. Basic 10 turns of this, the handle will completely mix the material. We bag it out. That can comes out in a filtered bag. You can see the filter here. Again, we're wanting any kind of gas generation to come out. We place that into an outer can. This can is not sealed. It's just cross-taped, literally across the top so the gas can get out. It is then put into a Criticality container overpack, which is, again, this comes out of WIP. They're the ones that designed this. The cans go inside this pipe. We can get 2 cans in there. It is a 55-gallon drum. Again, it's certified for up to, this is a pipe overpack, 200 fissile gram equivalents. The pipe, the CCO can take up to 380 fissile gram equivalents, and that's what we're using because we can get twice the amount of material in here at half the price. So it's a much more economical way of getting rid of the material. In summary, we can safely store. We're making sure we look at the storage conditions for continued safe storage in the future. We are staffed in the facility. We operate 1 shift 4 days a week to fully handle the plutonium and the surveillance and the downblend. The rest of the facility is staffed 24 hours, 7 days a week. And then again, we are currently downblending. Again, we are funding dependent. We are relying on Congress to provide us funds to keep this going. And is there any questions?
Everybody. Alan, Dan Kaminsky, CAB. Alan, thank you for a great presentation, a lot of refresher information, a lot of good details that were added from the last time I had seen it. Question on the destructive testing. What's the disposition path for the actual canisters after destructive testing?
The canisters we just throw away as true waste. The material would downblend.
Okay, so true waste for the...
True waste for the stainless steel containers, because again, they're potentially contaminated, so there's no ability to reuse or send it for reuse unless you did a major decontamination effort on it. The plutonium itself, once we get through destructive examinations, we go ahead and downblend that also so that we don't repackage it and have to deal with it, handle it twice.
That was my second question. So since you're downblending what you're destructive testing, is destructive testing pretty much kind of winding down as you're opening these canisters for downblending? Or are you doing both tasks at the same time?
We do the destructive examinations to begin with. The first 3 months of the year is what we shoot for because we want it in the fall when the humidity is low so that we can determine the humidity in the 3013 can. So we try to knock it out in October through the end of December. Then starting in January, we go into just downblending. To do a surveillance takes about 8 days to 9 days to complete the surveillance. Downblending I can do in 2 days. So we try to get the surveillances out of the way and then we go into the downblend. But we are downblending we were repackaging and putting it back in storage. Now we're downblending and to get rid of it.
Thank you.
Dave Abacus, CAP. I understand that uranium is also stored in K area. Is the plutonium and uranium stored separately?
Some of it is mixed. I mean, some of it is actually plutonium, uranium. It can be enriched uranium. It can be depleted or natural uranium. It's material that came to us already mixed. There is a small amount of enriched uranium that we brought in. We bring material in, we will store it. And for instance, uranium can be processed in H Canyon. We'll bring it into K area and then transship it to H Canyon for dissolution. But yeah, we store both of them in there. Majority of it's plutonium, but we are able to store both materials together.
David Hoyle, CAB. Alan, you mentioned downblending. What exactly do you blend the plutonium with?
I am not able to give that. That information is not released to the public. Again, the idea also is it protects it from a safeguard standpoint. We do not want don't take this wrong, the general public to know what we're down blending, because a bad guy could then determine what it's down blended with and have a step up on being able to recover it. So we do not release the recipe that we down blend. It is inert material. It's material that's totally inert.
I see. And you mentioned that there were shipments to WIP of down blended material this year. We
Yes.
were told earlier that that was 2 out of the 8 shipments. Is that correct?
7 out of 8.
7 out of the 8 shipments
We-
contained down blended material?
We had 8 shipments left of plutonium, down blended plutonium to go to WIP when it shut down. So far this year, since resumption, we have shipped 7 of those 8 shipments.
I see.
We've got 1 more to go, and we hope to complete it in the August timeframe.
I see. So you don't plan on doing down blended shipments in the next fiscal year?
We are working with WIP on that. It's a prioritization. I know Idaho has high priority. Los Alamos has high priority as far as getting material out of their site. Most of our material currently that we are down blending now is not characterized or certified to go to WIP. We are working with them, so we're having to deal with all of that. But right now, we aren't sure if we'll make shipments next year. We'll wait and see. Part of it will also depend on the courts.
Could you elaborate? What's
Go ahead with Jack.
No, I was just going to say, we are negotiating with WIP right now on the number of shipments we'll make next year. Tentatively, we've been scheduled for 10 additional shipments next year, but we haven't identified the waste stream that we're going to ship. So it could be down blended plutonium, it could be our inventory of true waste.
You said part of it's dependent on the courts. Could you elaborate on that?
South Carolina has a lawsuit against the department to remove 1 metric ton of plutonium. So depending on how the court rules, it could make a priority. Savannah River could become a priority for different things. We don't know. We're working through that with the courts now.
I see. Thank you.
Narendra Malak, CAB. I have twofold question. Number one is that you mentioned that through the cans some gas comes out. Is it radioactive, and how you collect it?
Depends on, if you're talking about the surveillance, we have that in a pressure chamber that we pull a vacuum on before we ever drill, so that we have basically when we drill through the cans, we pull a vacuum into a sample vial or a glass vial that is sealed, and we send that up to the National Laboratory for an analysis. That's for the 3013 surveillance. The downblend cans and all have a vent on them that allows that is a filtered vent. It is, it's a accredited filter such that any gas that comes out is filtered prior to being released to the atmosphere.
And second question is, you mentioned that you use coffee grinders. Is there any dust, and how do you collect it, and how do you dispose it off?
It's inside a glove box, so it's inside a filtered, ventilated area. We try not to grind it to fines. We just wanted to, to get the bigger chunks to the point that it's fairly homogeneous, and we're not after talcum powder, we're after more granules. So we don't get very little fines created. We'll grind, and empty so that you don't just keep grinding till you get a fine mesh powder. Because we don't want dusting on the plutonium glove box, because that just adds to personnel exposure.
So my follow-up question is, third one, it just came to my mind, that plutonium you are sending as TRU waste to WIP. In DWPF canisters, we have very little quantity of plutonium. Why don't we get those canisters classified as TRU waste and ship it to WIP?
We went through that analysis. We've looked at it. There's a couple of things. If we ship it as is, it is a high security shipment that, you really, right now, all WIP shipments are very transparent. All the states know exactly where it's going, when it's going. If we make the shipments with what we call the 3013 cans, first of all, it makes WIP become a Category 1 facility, storage facility, which means they've got to do a major amount of upgrades. We estimated that's probably ordered us somewhere between $200 to $300 million out of WIP, because they got to put in all kind of security. Second part you run into is if you put in these cans without any diluent in the post-closure go-to. But we did look at it. In fact, I went in and had the 9975 certified by NRC because any shipment going to WIP has to be in an NRC certified container. So we started down that road, but the decision has been made, we're going to down blend the way we're doing now because that's already been accepted.
Thank you.
Mr. Roten.
Bill Roten,
Dr. Roten.
CAB. Thank you for the presentation, Alan. From something you said earlier, is it correct that the plutonium can be recovered from the adulterant?
Anything can be recovered. Enough time, enough money. I will tell you, with the technical capability within the world, anything can be recovered from anything. You can put it in high-level waste glass, I can recover it. You put it in a cement, I can recover it. You can put it in a ceramic matrix, I can recover it. What you try to do is make it difficult such that when you try to recover it, it takes a significant effort. It's not something you can just walk out there and pick up. So, yeah, the answer is anything we do, I don't care what it is, it can be recovered given enough time and money. I mean, for people to say something is unrecoverable, I won't go there at all. I've worked too much with this material.
Thank you very much.
All right.
See if we can quickly work through this next set. Susan?
Susan Corbett, CAB, thank you. I'm always interested in plutonium. I think it's fascinating, scary, but fascinating. So a couple of questions here. So remind me again, because I always get confused. What isotope are we talking? Is this 238 or 239?
Mostly 239. I mean, it's got
So
some.
this is the long-lived stuff, 24,000 years, right?
Yes,
Okay, that's.
this is the long one.
And then it deteriorates into, oh gosh, I'm sorry. I've been having trouble with my nosebleed lately. I'm going to have to excuse myself for a minute.
Let's slide along over here to Mr. Howard.
Doug Howard, CAB. On your flow chart here, I'm looking at the how the plutonium comes in, and you say it comes out of the port of Charleston.
Yes.
Okay, and the question that I have is, what determines, you said it goes either by rail or truck. What determines which way it goes?
Most of it depends on the type of ship containers coming in. Most of ours, in fact, all of the plutonium has come in by truck. It comes in on a ship depending on what country it's coming in from. We've received from several countries. Our transportation safeguards personnel, which transport the weapons and everything, meet the boat down at Charleston. They'll load it onto our trucks, and then it's trucked up to K area where we unload it. Some of the spent fuel that comes in from overseas will come in by rail, but the plutonium itself is all coming in by truck once it goes into Charleston, usually at the naval base in Charleston.
Thank you.
I'm not answering your question.
Don't. With your current plan for downblending, packaging, shipping, how many shipments would it take to get all 6 tons to WIP?
Remember, I only have authorization for 5 tons.
How many shipments would it take to get, all right, the 5 tons, we can
Now you're
multiply
gonna
by
ask me. You're
20%.
gonna ask me to do math up here. 42 drums can go on a shipment.
Telling me to get my calculator out?
Yeah,
All
almost.
right, I got it right here.
Downblending, where we're at now, we're anticipating getting up to 1,600, almost 1,700 CCOs a year. And
1,700 CCOs, is that the shipping container?
yeah, it's a shipping container.
So
42 of them go on a shipment.
So 1,600
Yes,
divided by 42,
yes. Should be,
that's 38.
all right.
That's 38 shipments that are 38 shipments worth of material.
Per
And we're-
year.
Per year, and so that's times 5. And we're talking about 10 shipments being
No.
authorized for all TRU waste coming off the site for this coming year?
Well, remember, WIP is ramping up.
Yeah, but still,
So we've talked with WIP We've gotten with their personnel, Todd Schrader, who's the site manager, Jeff Carswell is the deputy. They're feeling that once they get up and, I'll say, get back into normal operations, they can easily receive our material with no issues.
38 shipments of this year plus our normal
Not
TRU?
this, in the future, once we get.
Right, yeah.
In the future, they can receive the shipments that we're projecting.
So what's given their hopeful projections that they'll hopefully come up, and I'm really hoping that that happens, okay? But I want to get a good picture, I want people to have a good picture of how long this is going to take just for the 6 tons. So we're talking 10, 12 years minimum to get this off?
If we get to run 4 shifts 7 days a week, we get through in 2030.
2030.
We run one shift.
And that's just this 6 tons?
If we run one shift 4 days a week, as we're staffed today, it's 2046.
So that's just this 6 tons? That's only 5 tons of this 6 tons, not including other 30-some tons.
But we're looking at putting a, potential additional capability if other things happen. We would like, if the budget can be sustained, to go to a 4 shift 7 days a week. Again, it's much more cost effective.
And I know there's lots of room down in WIP with extensions. I know that salt mine is huge. I've been there myself, but.
You will hear some people argue with you on that one.
Well, but anyway, so my point is that this is a long.
This is a long-term mission. This is not something that happens overnight.
So, all right.
Joyce, finish it up for us.
Joyce Underwood, Cab. I want to ask you about money. You said that your program is dependent on your budget being approved by Congress. Well, your program basically restarts at the same time the fiscal year restarts. So do you have to delay it to wait for them to put it, like, how does it work? Is it back? Are you working on a backwards year, I guess is what I'm saying, because of when it starts and when the fiscal year starts?
Well, of course, funding comes in supposedly in October.
Right.
Never happens. We're already in what we call a continuing resolution with Congress, but that's a different issue. Bottom line is we're currently staffed. The people are there. So what we do is we utilize the existing people. Now, if the budgets get significantly cut and were to be, like a workforce restructuring or something, that's a whole different issue. But on a year-to-year, currently, the people in K area are there. They are employed. We either do surveillances or we're doing downblending, because that's just, the surveillance is part of men's safe. So those people are paid to keep the facility in a safe configuration. You're not gonna, after December, ship them over to high-level waste for them to go work at high-level waste, because they're not qualified at high-level waste, plus they've got excess clearances to be able to, that's not needed at high-level. So we keep them in K area. That's why we determined the most cost-effective approach for the government was utilize the people we have. They're already trained, they're already qualified and certified, just to continuously utilize those people while they're employed. So from a year to year, the more the funding concern is dealing with, can I get to 4 shifts 7 days a week? Can I get additional funding to hire additional personnel? If we get a big enough budget cut, then yeah, this could be jeopardized. But right now,
It's not in danger of being jeopardized.
right now it is not jeopardized at its current operation, although we don't have the 18 budget.
Right.
We've got marks by 2 different House and Senate, but they get into conference and they could decide to do further cuts. So all I'm saying is we're dependent. Today we're funded. The personnel is staffed for 1 shift 4 days a week. We anticipate in 18 and beyond to keep that. But again, we're kind of at the whims of Congress too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Can we all give Alan a round of applause? He came right back in and picked it up. Good work. All right, so before we get started with Pam, and we will fill this time waiting for her presentation to get pulled up, we know that we need to recover some time. And so I'm going to give you 2 options. We can either steal it out of your lunch, or we can plan for cutting your break with the idea that maybe we'll recover that time and be able to give you one this afternoon. Who would rather pull the time out of their lunch? Just a quick show of hands. Only 2 people, 3 people. Okay, who would rather steal it from the break? That looks like the majority to me. All right. Neither? Neither. You want both? Well, we'll hope to see if we can get both. For now, we'll plan to cut the break if we have to. Up next, we have Pam Marks.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. I didn't know downblending could be so exciting. And James forgot to mention that I can talk really fast if you want me to, so make up some time. Anyway, I'm in addition to being your alternate DDFO, I'm the federal project director for the Salt Waste Project, and I really do that job a lot better. So it's my pleasure to be here today to talk to you about the Salt Waste Processing Facility project. I think it's been about 2 years since I briefed the CAB, and a lot has happened. A lot of great things have happened, and it's also a pleasure to be here today with Keith Harp from Savannah River Remediation, who's going to talk to you about the salt integration projects. We also had the pleasure of hosting the CAB on a tour, I think about that same time, about 2 years ago. So you would be amazed at what it looks like today if you were to come back, which we invite you to do at any time. The project team, the Department of Energy, Parsons, our salt waste processing contractor, and Savannah River Remediation have been working really hard over the last couple of years to identify all of the interfaces and the connections that have to go on to make sure that salt waste processing can come up seamlessly when that time comes, which is not too far ahead of us. So again, today I'm going to talk to you about the project, talk to you about what we're doing and our plans for startup, and then Keith's going to talk to you about a lot of those integration activities that we've been working on so hard. First of all, just as some background, I think a lot of you know this already, but the salt waste processing facility is being built to reduce the radioactive volumes that need to be vitrified in DWPF. We use the same processes that are currently being used in the actinide removal project, modular caustic side solvent extraction, which is commonly known as ARPMCU. So the good news is we have a solid basis for our technology. It's been demonstrated, it's been proven, and we're just the bigger machine. We will be processing over 90% of the tank waste that's currently there, and we have our nominal capacity is around 7 million gallons a year, but I'm going to talk to you about some things we're also looking at that we hope is going to make that a lot better. Many of you have seen this flow diagram before, but again, just to refresh everybody, the liquid wastes are stored in the canyons. They come through and are delivered to SWPF. We will remove the actinide and cesium and strontium waste streams. Those get returned back to DWPF where those are vitrified, and what we call the decontaminated waste solution goes to the salt disposition facility. And last CAB, Shane Farrell briefed you on the status of the salt disposal units. And again, this is ARPMCU, which is currently operating. It runs at about 1 million gallons a year, and again, we're going to run at about 7 to 8. Within SWPF, we have 3 key unit operations when the material comes from the tank farm. The first thing we do is we do an alpha strike process, and that removes the strontium and the actinides. That material is then moved into a centrifugal contactor separation process, which removes the cesium. Both of those streams go to DWPF. We have one other unit operation called alpha finishing, which we really don't plan that we're going to need to use a whole lot, but it's there in the event that after going through those first 2 unit operations, we haven't met our waste acceptance criteria or our decontamination factors. So if you want to think about it, this is sort of a polishing step. We can run the material back through that alpha finishing process, and any materials there would go to DWPF, and then again, the decontaminated waste solution goes to Saltstone. Just a couple of statistics on SWPF. It is a fairly complicated chemical processing facility. You can see some of our construction metrics here. It's about 140,000 square feet, a very thick base mat, 8 feet thick. This is a seismically qualified facility. We poured about 40,000 cubic yards of concrete, and you can see a lot of the other metrics here, the amount of piping, cabling, rebar. We do have 85 tanks of various sizes and a lot of pumps. So as I said, we are a complex chemical processing facility. Here's where we are on our trajectory. We finished the design several years ago. Construction was completed in April of last year. I'm sure many of you read about that in the newspapers. It was a huge success for the project. We are now in the testing and commissioning phase, and I'll talk to you specifically about where we are in that phase of the project. After we finish testing and commissioning, our target right now is in December of 18, we plan to get operational approval of the facility. That's our baseline date. I'm pleased to say that we've pulled that back about 2 months, and right now our baseline shows we're going to be in October, late October of 18. So with a few prayers from all of y'all and a couple knocks on the table, we hope to get there. And we continue to try to pull that back to the left. Once we achieve that milestone, we'll go through about a 2-month period of hot commissioning, and that's when we first introduce the nuclear materials into the facility, slowly ramp up our process, and we have a couple of environmental checks that we have to do with the facility in RAD and environmental just to make sure everything's working. And then under the Parsons contract, we have 1 year of operations. If any of you have been paying close attention to the liquid waste procurement, after that 1 year of operations, liquid waste will be subsumed into the liquid waste contract, and operation of the facility will be transferred to the selected liquid waste contractor. After that, again, depending on our throughput, SWPF is planned to operate for about 10 to 15 years. As I mentioned, construction was complete on April 22nd. Of 2016. We were 8 months ahead of our baseline date of December, and we were $60 million under budget. And during that process, Parsons did accept a cost cap to complete the construction of the facility, and we're also proud to say that with a strong partnership between the department and Parsons, we didn't have any change orders or requests for equitable adjustment, so the 530 stayed as our baseline cost. So where are we today in testing phase? Our current workforce is about 405. That's down from a little over 800 during the construction phase. Obviously, that main delta is due to craft that went to the hull and were redeployed. And when we get operating, it'll be in a little over 300. So we'll be adjusting our workforce a little bit over the coming year. But you can see the biggest change in staffing we've had has been hiring our operations and maintenance staff. Parsons has done an excellent job. They've onboarded individuals as needed on the project. We've actually staffed ourselves now in all of those categories. We're fully staffed except for a little bit of attrition here and there. And so we're in the training mode with most of those new employees. Obviously, a wonderful opportunity for growth here in the Aiken area, bringing in a new workforce and training them on a modern and automated facility, very exciting. So now how are we approaching testing and commissioning? We go through a series of management self-assessments prior to going through each commissioning phase. The first one was MSA1, which was done right at the end of construction. And basically, that authorized us to move from a construction posture to a testing posture. And you can see a lot of the programs that we looked hard at that point in time. Conduct of testing, conduct of operations, quality assurance, maintenance, work planning and control, and industrial safety. So we ensured that all those programs were in place, moved into this water testing phase. About the 1st of July, we entered MSA2. MSA2 is looking at the introduction of chemicals into the facility, which we plan to do in about 2 more months, around the 1st of November. So in addition to all of these programs that we looked at previously, now we're visiting our chemical safety program, fire protection, training for chemical safety, waste management, and then performance testing. We are bringing in a simulant that will allow us to operate the facility as close as possible to what that nuclear material will look like. So that, again, is going to raise our confidence level significantly before we go into nuclear operations. Then MSA3 will occur next year in the spring, early summer, and then we bring in, we finalize our emergency management posture, our nuclear safety posture, and radiation protection. After MSA3, we move into a series of operational readiness reviews. The contractor does their operational readiness review. When they're done and they believe that they are ready to move into an operational phase, the Department of Energy will come in and do an ORR. So next time this year, we'll be in that phase of the project, which I don't know about y'all, but gives me a lot of goosebumps. So then once we get our authorization to operate, which we call CD4, As I mentioned, there are a few tests that we have to do in terms of monitoring our radioactive shielding, looking at the removal efficiency, meeting our waste acceptance criteria, and stack monitoring for environmental safety. So everybody asks, why does it take so long? So we crossed that construction threshold in April of 2016, and it's going to be November of 18 before we operate. So everybody says, why? Why does it take so long? Well, obviously, we go through a very disciplined process to make sure that the 3 Ps, the people, the plant, and the procedures, all are in operating order before we make the decision to process nuclear materials. And we go through a very disciplined process to get us to that end state. Once we came through construction and we turned over our systems, the first thing we do is calibration, grooming, and alignment. And that just means we look at the individual components. We make sure the valves are aligned properly, there's no leakage in the systems, everything is in place to start the testing. Then we move into system operational testing. We have 60 system operational tests. So we've broken down our entire system into 60 individual tests. Then we move into integrated system testing, which is there's 5 of those. So I kind of use the analogy, if you think I have like 60 bubbles here, I have to put those 60 bubbles into 5 bubbles. Kind of a basic thought. But obviously, some of those things transcend, like a lot of our plant systems are going to be used and tested in all of our ISOTs. Then we move into what we call integrated water runs. Now we've taken the individual pieces and we're running them as a whole. So obviously, before we introduce a chemical hazard, we want to run the whole system with water to make sure, again, everything operates properly and we can introduce chemicals. Then we go into the cold commissioning mode, and again, that's running the plant full up. By that phase of the project, when we get to integrated water runs and cold commissioning, we should have knocked out all the problems in the operation of the equipment, the mechanical aspects of the facility, and a lot of the procedural elements. So now what we're into is really proficiency. We're maturing our workforce, we're maturing our procedures, and making sure, again, that we are ready to operate in a normal mode. And as I mentioned earlier, when that phase is finished, we go into the operational readiness reviews and then hot commissioning. So where are we on those various phases? CG&A, we're 99% complete. That last 1% is just waiting. We have to wait for some test or some configuration to be available to do that last 1%. The SOTs, all of our plant utilities are operational. We've done about 50% of the system operational tests. Actually, as I stand here today, I'll tell you it's a little more than 50%. We're probably in the mid-40s by now. We also have implemented a maintenance trial program where every one of the key maintenance activities that we have to do, like if we have to pull a heat exchanger, if we have to replace pumps, we have manipulators in our hot cell, so we're testing the removal and maintenance and replacement of our the manipulators. We are going through a series of those maintenance trials, and that has been extraordinarily beneficial to us. We put the procedure in place, the operators do the evolution, then they troubleshoot it, and they look for improvements in the procedure. Right now, they're just doing those evolutions as we stand here today without any PPE, or, well, obviously industrial PPE, but not the kind of PPE that they would need when they do the evolution in operational phase. Then we'll mature that, and they'll move into that. They'll eventually do it with complete full PPE, and we'll do those multiple times. So again, we're actually V&Ving the procedure in the field to make sure it works. And again, a lot of great ideas have been coming out of that process. And the other key element here, which is one of the things we learned from previous ORRs, is we are running our plant system for all of these SOTs. That was the very first thing we brought up. We troubleshot the plant system, and as I said, all of the testing is being done through the control system. And again, that allows us to find some of those little hidden problems and fix them as we go. Our first ISOT is planned for the end of this month, and all of the ISOTs should be done by early September. Integrated water runs are going to start in November, and then cold commissioning will start shortly thereafter, probably in the December timeframe. We are currently building the simulant tank farm, which has about 125,000 gallon capacity. I always look at that and say it doesn't really look temporary to me, but that's what it is. And that is so we can feed the simulant into the plant during the cold commissioning phase. Progress relative to the operational readiness review. Parsons did complete their documented safety analysis at the end of May. The department currently has our safety evaluation team in place, and we're reviewing that submission and hope to have that done by the November timeframe and be able to give Parsons approval of that DSA so they can begin full implementation. That's another effort where there's been a lot of collaboration between the department, Savannah River Remediation, and Parsons, because SRR also has some changes that they have to make to their documented safety analysis to interface when SWPF starts up. We've also really, we try really hard to be proactive. We've made very early progress in getting some of our readiness deliverables in place. For example, our plan of action, which is how we're going to execute our operational readiness reviews. Both the contractor has one and the department has one. Those are done. They're sitting on the shelf. Right now, we're just waiting for headquarters to make a decision on who the startup approval authority will be. But probably the earliest time in an evolution of a project that those have ever been done. And we've gotten excellent feedback from headquarters on the quality of those deliverables. And the other thing that we're doing is we're putting our evidence database in place, so when the ORR team comes in, it's very obvious to them where everything is that we're putting forth as oversight, training, anything that lends itself to the operational readiness review is going into a database. This one, I'll apologize, is not in your packet. If any of you file it, it's in a different version. It says to be updated. So this is this is the update. This is as of July 1st. This is the status of all of our testing. The blue means the test has been completed. The green means the test is in progress. And the yellow shows what has yet to be done, or that it's the yellow is in progress. The green means that's the completion so far. So the good news is you see there's a lot of blue and green to the left of the data date. There is still some yellow, but there's also green to the right of the data date. So basically this demonstrates that we're tracking our progress, and as you can see, will be done at the end of September. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is some of the improvements I mentioned at the beginning, that while our baseline is to run 6 to 8 million gallons a year, there is a new solvent that has been tested in ARPMCU that we've had excellent results from. It not only significantly reduces the decontamination or increases the decontamination factor, it also significantly enhances our throughput. And so this has been not only tested in ARPMCU, Parsons has done some testing of it in, at the Parsons Technology Center, which is over on Silver Bluff. And we are very fortunate because we have underran so much on construction that I am in the position where I can fund these modifications and have them in place before we go hot, and then the liquid waste contractor can decide the premier time to implement this. So what we're hoping is we can implement this new technology much earlier in the life cycle of SWPF and the liquid waste program. We hope that we can probably get up to maybe 9 to 10 million gallons a year is the forecast. And obviously the faster we run, the liquid waste life cycle reduces commensurately, and that saves a lot of money to the taxpayer. So we're currently in the decision. We've received the final designs on or conceptual designs for the design of the annex. We're in the middle of making our final selection and putting a contract, making the contract action. So hopefully in August we'll begin the final design and construction of those modifications. So we're really excited about that, and I know if Shelley were sitting here, she'd have a really big smile on her face. So the DHEC is very excited about these modifications also. So kind of where are we looking forward? Obviously, we have a commitment to the community and the protection of the public and the worker, and that's what SWPF is all about in the liquid waste life cycle. We're very pleased to say we have no major technical issues or issues with our regulators, such as the Defense Board. We actually have a very collaborative relationship with both the regulators and the Defense Board. Very strong management team. Again, good collaboration, good partnering. We sit at the table together many, many times in a month and talk through issues and identify things that need to be worked on, and that's a lot of what Keith's going to talk to you about in a minute. We've also engaged SRNL and SRNS as needed to help with our integrated solution. as we're all committed to December of 2018. If you work on the project and you don't say December of 2018, you don't get to work on the project anymore. But no, seriously, everybody's committed to that. That's our driver. That's what we're going to accomplish or better. And I'd also say about the leadership, we've had very stable leadership in the last several years, both on the SRR, the DOE, and the Parsons side of the house, which obviously helps. And as far as I can tell, everybody is committed personally to being here when we cross that magic threshold in another year and a half. So we're well poised. We have the tools in place, and I know there's been a lot of talk here about money over the last 2.5 days, or day and a half, but I will have to say, if you want to send any thank you note to your congressman, you can thank them for SWPF. We rebaselined in 2013 after we dealt with the delay of the tanks. We laid out our budget profile, and Congress has given us every penny we've asked for. So again, we're very thankful for that, and it's allowed us to maintain this schedule, and again, do some other great things with some of the underruns that we've had. So that's the end of my presentation. I don't know if you want Keith to go next, and then we can do questions after. Or?
If you got questions for Pam, jot them down. We'll run Keith's video first, and then he can do his presentation, and then we'll do Q&A with both of you together, since everything's so closely related.
That's right. Thank you.
All right. If you'll pull up the video.
Processing Facility Integration Management Team. This animated conceptual illustration you're about to see was developed by Savannah River Remediation, the liquid waste contractor at Savannah River site. It's designed to provide a detailed historical and future view of the piping modifications underway within the existing liquid waste facilities. These modifications will accommodate influent and effluent paths associated with the new salt waste processing facility in J area. While a significant amount of scope has already been performed within the liquid waste facilities, this illustration will focus on the piping being modified to support SWPF integration.
In this first illustration, you'll see the piping arrangements for the liquid waste facilities installed prior to or during fiscal year 2016 in support of the future operations of the salt waste processing facility. There are 3 phases of installation of the new SWPF raw salt solution feed line extending from the tank 49 feet 5 riser to a predetermined tying location adjacent to our existing MCU facility. Phase 1 installed new piping down the right bank on the east side of tank 49. Phase 2 installed new piping at the edge of tank 49, the right bank connecting phases 1 and 2. Phase 3 installed new piping from the bottom of the east right bank to the final tie-in point adjacent to the MCU. This piping will remain in this configuration until SWPF receives authorization to operate from the Department of Energy. An additional modification you will note is where the decontaminated salt solution piping exits at the southeast corner of the SWPF building. This piping was installed by the SWPF project and was left out for tie-in. SRR modified this piping by extending the pipe to the existing inter-area transfer line that is installed from H-Tank 50 to the saltstone processing facility. This transfer piping will remain in this configuration until SWPF receives their authorization to operate from the Department of Energy.
Next, you will see the modifications which are underway in fiscal year 2017 and planned for the first quarter of fiscal year 2018. Due to the DWPF's Melton 2 reaching end of life, SRR has secured MCU and DWPF operations and has installed the shoring at 511S to support the excavation required to make modifications to the underground line. The strip effluent line from MCU has been flushed to DWPF prior to shoring installation. The remaining process lines will be flushed and drained prior to excavating down approximately 21 feet to expose the jagged line. This will reduce the radiation rates, allow the workers to perform the hands-on work necessary to make the connection. The scope of these modifications will include underground tie-ins of piping previously installed by the SWPF project to the low point pump bed known as 511S. During the same time period, jumper modifications will occur inside the 511S building to allow the MCU continued operations at the completion of these tie-in activities. Dummy head connectors will be installed on the transfer line piping from the SWPF to prevent transfer of any material until the authorization to operate is received from the Department of Energy to start the new facility.
In closing, the modifications you will see are scheduled after SWPF receives their approval to operate from the Department of Energy in fiscal year 2019. At that time, the liquid waste contractor will proceed with securing operations at MCU, DWPF, and Saltstone. They will drain the necessary transfer lines, including the H to Z inter-area transfer line, and flush the higher activity lines with flush water to reduce the radiation rates for their workers. They will then proceed with final tie-ins and jumper modifications to support the startup of the SWPF. The changes you will note: first, the internal jumper piping modifications within the low point pump bed. 3 jumpers will be removed and replaced. The second change, the final tie-in of the DSS piping previously modified in fiscal year 2016. The current plan will require the low point drain tank to be placed into operational service for the first time in its history. The H to Z inter-area transfer line holds about 6,000 gallons of DSS at all times and is planned to be drained into the low point drain tank. After the SWPF tie-in is completed, the DSS and the low point drain tank will be pumped back into the H to Z inter-area transfer line for final processing. The last change you will observe is the final tie-in of the new SWPF raw salt solution feed piping from tank 49 or phase 4 of the piping modifications that initiated in fiscal year 2015. This final tie-in isolates the MCU strip effluent line and uses this section of underground transfer piping to transfer raw salt solution from tank 49 to SWPF, rendering MCU to be no longer able to operate. This concludes the required piping modifications for SWPF to become operational and fully integrated in fiscal year 2019.
So I guess the first thing I would say is that those are not real actors, they're real people. Good-looking people, I might add.
Are you sure, Keith?
All right, let's see. So, objectives, and I guess the first thing you could say is, what else is there to say? What that video did, what did it leave out? The objectives of the liquid waste program is to operate MCU, modular caustic side solvent extraction, until SWPF is ready to come online. So when all the testing that Pam spoke to a few minutes ago, when we get to the point that DOE is given authorization to operate, that's when we shut down MCU and go make those final tie-ins that you saw discussed there in the video. The other thing is that we are to support the SWPF startup in accordance with the direction from DOE. So my understanding, sometime in December of 18, I think is what she said, a couple of times. So that's what we're shooting for, December the 3rd, 2018. That's where we're headed as a program. And then the last thing is to support it not only to start up, to get 6 million gallons through the process and the initial operations. 4.625 in the first year at a lower curie level, and then we'll go up to 6 and then up to 9 as funding permits and next-gen solvent comes to pass. So, going way back, if you go back in time, back to 2009 when SRR first took the liquid waste contract, we've been working to build the program to get ready for SWPF. So as you can see, things that we've completed on this list, the salt solution receipt tanks at Saltstone, done, 2 60,000 gallon vessels, ready, placed into operations, ready to go.
currently providing a lot of flexibility for the liquid waste program, getting us ready for SWPF when it starts up. The ETF, we put a waste collection hold tank there, 25,000 gallons of volume. Again, a lot of flexibility today, getting us ready for SWPF. The blend tank, the first blend tank is tank 21, currently being used by MCU. Will continue to be used for SWPF throughputs. And then the new feed line you saw, phases 1, 2, and 3 are done. Phase 4 is underway in this outage period that we're in today, so we're actually making progress on it. And then the east transfer line modifications, you saw that we had already added the section of pipe. We have one final tie-in to make there. We'll do that again out in the 2018 timeframe. We have the west transfer line scope. You saw that the sheet piling had been put in, the supports, all that's in. We're making very good progress. We're down at about 17, 18 feet in depth. We are just finished the flushing of the underground piping. We have some aggressive flushing that we have to do in the next few weeks. And we've got jumper modifications over at inside the 511S building that we're making that you saw in that video. All of that work is underway, and we plan to finish that up in no later than December of this year. That'll position us to be ready to start MCU back up when DWPF comes out of the melter outage. So, as of May of 17, this is a new slide we put together. This shows everything that's already done, getting ready for SWPF. So you can see SDU6 is complete, just got CD4 approved. The glass waste storage building work is continuing to go. The SSRTs, as I mentioned, are done here. That's a picture of the SSRT cell. SWPF, of course, we've completed the titanium testing to allow the increased titanium limits for the glass at DWPF. That work's done. And then we've got the utilities complete. We've also got the east transfer line, as I mentioned. Tank 50 is ready to go, as well as ETP, and then the blend tank. So if we move to the next slide, this is what you see that's required to get done to support SWPF startup. All key activities that we're tracking. One is the DWPF mods, which is all the DSA work, that safety basis work that Pam spoke to, that we're trying to align up with SWPF while we continue to operate MCU. So quite a challenge for us. We have the feed tank final tie-ins and all of the west transfer line scope that we've been doing that I just talked about. Tank 49, getting it ready to feed. And then a second blend tank that you can see on the screen, tank 41. So that'll be the second blend tank that gets us up to the 6 million gallons a year. And then there's a third blend tank that will come into the picture. These are the things that have to happen after startup. So you get into the third blend tank, which is tank 26. You have some water management activities up here that will get done after startup. SDU7 will come along, actually underway with CD1, CD2 work going through. And then the saltstone staffing. This is all very important to us. As you can see, I didn't talk about this one. We do need 2 shifts of operations to get us up to 6 million gallons a year. We don't have that staffing yet. Funding's coming in FY18, the first part of the fiscal year, and we're expecting to get those guys hired, to get them trained, and get them into the system. For 24/7 operations, this is what it's going to take to run SWPF at max throughput. And so whatever that max throughput is, whether it's rated at 8, 9, 10, 11, based on what we get out of the next-gen solvent, through the process, the 24/7 shift will cover that at Saltstone. So completed scope, up on your upper left, see tank 21, that scope is done. This is a picture, aerial shot of the east transfer lines. The tank 49, this is where the feed line is put in, and under you can see the asphalt's been replaced. The SSRTs again, and the the ETF tank that's been placed into service. So in order to get from the starting line at January 1st of 18 until December of 18, we don't want to stop salt processing. So we want that to continue to go. So for MCU, we had to go do some modifications to keep it up and running. This pump that you see here in this picture is a pump that's been installed in tank 49 as a backup, never been used. We went out and tested that pump and placed it into service. What that does is that allows us to keep MCU operating with good feed through the same valve box. We had to build a new jumper that goes in the valve box with 2 valves, and that's the jumper itself installed in the valve box itself. We went in and built that, put it into the valve box, and that gives us the opportunity to continue to operate MCU while we're making modifications in tank 49 to get it ready for SWPF in the future. at DWPF, we have some transfer controls over there that we're working on. You can see that this picture right here is a typical leak detection box that's out in the facilities. This drain rod is fabricated and goes inside of this sleeve. You have to do that to place it into operation so it can collect liquid. If anything was to leak, that's the only way we would know it. All of that's being modified at DWPF to support it. We have new sump pumps that we bought to put into the cells to help us if anything leaks when SWPF's online, so we'll know it, get it back up, get it fixed, and get it back online. The piping diagrams for the west transfer lines, this is the way it was when we started last month. In the outage period, this is the way it will look when we're done in December. And you can see the piping mods coming from SWPF. This little section right here will be the last section that we actually tie in. We'll work from 511 back up, make sure that when we make those final tie-ins to SWPF, that we have the lines capped inside 511 to protect the clean facility. So safety basis controls, we have the waste acceptance criteria. We have communication protocols between us and Parsons in that first year of operations. We also have to have very clear and concise detailed instructions on how to terminate transfers in the event of any kind of storms or things like that. Facility isolation, how do we actually isolate the SWPF from the tank farms, and then the monitoring of transfers, and of course response to natural phenomena, storms again, how do we respond to those with the new company in a new plant. So we're working through all of that. 511S, going back toward it, you see that the sheet piling started. This is what the ground looked like when we started, just flat ground. We got the sheet piling in with no safety issues, not even a medical treatment case or first aid case. A very nice, well done job out in the field. This picture was in, June, early June, and this is as late as last week. And you can see the distance between the support beams and the grade there compared to here. That's how much advance we've made in the last couple of weeks, even with all the rain. And I'm telling you, the rain is a nightmare out there with that clay, trying to get in there and work. Radiological control inspectors, from a partnering standpoint, I think I mentioned this the last time I spoke to you guys. We took the 20 RadCon inspectors from Pam's project, brought them in early. We've trained those guys. We've got them qualified as at least level 16 all the way up to level 20 inspectors. We're actually using them to do the radiological work at 511 and in the tank farms, giving them real experience in the field, training them up, and then in January or sooner, as soon as we get done, we'll ship those guys back to SWPF, and they will have fully trained and qualified RadCon inspectors. Helps all the way across the board. So that was a great partnering effort between the two companies and the department. And then fan motors, SWPF had some fan motors that they were troubleshooting. We have a huge maintenance shop on site that SRS runs. We have PDCS guys that from SRR that went in and did some diagnostic work for them. So another great opportunity there for partnering, as well as transferring unused equipment. If they have some switches or something we need, we go do that exchange instead of going to excess. And it's been very practical and very useful. Lab training, same thing there as with the RadCon. SWPF has a new lab. It's a great lab. Matter of fact, we love it. We're waiting for it to come online. But they had to train their people to get them trained up to get ready to qualify for the ORR. So we brought them into the M&O and got them qualified working through the C lab on site to get them ready for ORR, and that's been going very well also. And then EP, we had an integrated EP drill set for October of this year. We've already ran a couple of like 2S drills intermingled with between SRR and Parsons. All of that's going well. We look forward to the EP drill to see how it's actually going to play out and watch the results of that. So very exciting times to see all that. Also just completed the ring down phones being installed in all of the facilities. So now we can actually talk from control room to control room and start that protocol development. We won't have a test on acronyms, so if you don't know them, don't worry about it. And I think that's me.
All right. So who's first? Dawn beat everybody to the punch.
Dawn Gillis Cab. I saw all the stuff that you had to do, especially related to Saltstone, and a lot of things are going on. There was some question at one point, I see you have a lot of people you're bringing on for Saltstone, but there was some question about capacity of the equipment to be able to run that much material. I didn't see that, I couldn't really read it either, but are there any issues associated with that are being worked?
So we have an ELOD project that you should have, if you looked at the third slide as I was going through what's done, where we're at. I don't know if we can go back to that or not. Can we do that?
This one, yeah, I couldn't, that's what I was talking about. I could, what's,
So if you
right,
look,
yeah, the
right,
orange
so
part's there, but
right
you
here
were
is-
talking about people, so that's the.
Yeah,
I
so
can't-
this is the staffing and this is the scope.
Oh, okay, I couldn't.
Yeah,
I
ELOD
couldn't
2
read
is
it.
the scope.
Okay. all
Yeah,
right,
so we have things that we want to go do, and that gets us up to the 9 million. Once next generation solvent is actually implemented at SWPF, we have some modifications that we need to go make at Saltstone to keep the process up and running. Make it more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Higher throughput, but efficient.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Okay, that was it. Thank you.
That help? Okay.
So let's come over here to Susan.
Susan Corbett Cab. Let's see if I can get through this without my nose bleeding. This is a very facility very dependent on piping, obviously, a lot of piping. How many miles of piping we got there? A lot, right?
Yeah.
And it's all above ground. It's all above
That's a lot.
ground. It's all above ground, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So I'm curious, because I saw you had a section on emergency planning, and I'm always concerned about that. We've had a lot of tornado activity. There was a tornado touchdown in Monetta a while back, and there was a hell of a storm came through here a couple days ago. What happens, let's say, if a tornado drops down and rips out a section of piping? Is there an automatic shutdown valve, or does that have to be done manually? How quickly can you isolate that stretch of piping that has been damaged?
So the majority, and I mean the majority, less than probably 50 feet of pipe is below grade. So it's all secure below grade and buried 4 to 8, maybe even 15 to 20 feet deep. As you saw at 511, we have excavations down as far as 25 feet that we'll be going to get to the piping to modify it. There again, that 50-foot section is embraced in concrete on the tank top itself, just where the risers are. It comes out of the ground and runs about a 50-foot section, about 3 feet off the grade. It is got seismically qualified supports. It's got concrete supports underneath that, so it's very well maintained. If we had the event to where that line got damaged, our operators are trained to where not only can they shut down the system, but we also have leak detection capability with immediate alarm notification. So it's very timely. I would say less than 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay, and then that leads me to ask you have leak detection ability, so since this is below grade or underground,
correct,
if something corrodes or leaks, how quickly does that get detected?
So we have leak detection boxes at 511S and back at tank 49, so on both ends of the pipe. It would take probably no more than probably less than a half a shift for it to make the entire transition, because that piping, I want to say it's close to 1.5 miles. So we have the detection on both ends, and by the time it gets into the jacket and runs down to the leak detection box, it's a safety class probe or safety significant conductivity probe in there that we test daily and prior to each and every transfer to make sure it's working, operating properly. So we would respond immediately to that.
Okay, thank you.
It is double jacketed, so that's the.
Thank you.
What's that?
They're double jacketed.
Yes, the transfer lines, the core pipes are in a jacket, and the jacket is what leads to the conductivity probe. So even if it is leaking from the core into the jacket, it will never get into the environment. It's all contained. That's a great point.
David Hoyle, Cab. Excellent presentations. Can you tell me exactly what the chemical simulant is that you use, and once you're done with testing using the simulant, how is it disposed of?
The chemical simulant, it's actually a formula that was developed by Savannah River Nuclear Lab many, many years ago. I I can't tell you what it is because it's very complicated off the top of my head, but it does have the characteristics as closely as we can emulate what the liquid waste will look like when we receive it, in terms of, all of the key viscosity, rheology, density, all those things. Since we won't be doing any contaminated operations, it would just be a normal commercial disposal. It's nothing.
It wouldn't be a hazardous waste?
No.
Okay. All during this whole process, you're going to be transitioning from SRR to some future liquid waste contractor. What precautions are you taking to assure that that transition period doesn't upset the schedule?
Well, as we've talked about, there's a tremendous amount of communication and partnering going on. A lot of plans are being put in place to make sure that we understand the path forward and the things that need to be done. Obviously, when you go through a transition like that, while there are some impacts because there are changes in the senior leadership, most of the staff that will be working on these initiatives would be transitioned to the new liquid waste contractor. So we really don't anticipate a lot of disruption at this point in time. We're actually accelerating some of the things we're trying to get laid in place. So again, at least there's a plan in place at that point of that transition. Keith just finished some lean events to look at some of these key interface points, and they're going to have schedules and project plans and things for execution, so those can be handed off to the new liquid waste contractor.
And I'll just add there, David, if you think about the transition that occurs when it goes from liquid waste to liquid waste in the December, January timeframe, the department was forward-looking. In the RFP, they actually put a transition window as well for SWPF itself. So there's a 3-month transition window there as well.
And as I mentioned, the other key thing is Parsons will be retained during that transition. The SWPF doesn't transition until a year into the the new liquid waste contract. So we have that piece stable.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to also echo Don Gillis's comment in terms of concerns. This is a wonderful facility, the SWPF, coming online. It's going to have tremendous throughput capacity, and a number of us on the CAB are concerned with both the front end and back end, before and after SWPF, in terms of being able to feed the appetite of SWPF in a timely manner, as well as Saltstone being able to process the liquid waste coming out of SWPF and keeping up with its output. I remain unconvinced that all of the precautions have been taken in that regard, and I look forward to hearing more in terms of how you guys are planning to do that.
Gil.
Gil Allens with CAB. Pam, you said a couple times that, we're looking to hire more people by December 2018. I heard you. I'm saying December 2018. How many people are we looking to add?
As I said, most of the workforce has been onboarded. I think in the operations realm, they added about 200 operations and maintenance. So that was really the key area. And then the laboratory, we added 40, I think it was. Remember, we're a 24/7 operation, so we have to cover all those shifts.
And so we're pretty much fully staffed now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Except for, again, we're trying to protect ourselves against attrition. But our retention rate's been extremely good.
Okay. And in are these internal transfers or are these new hires to the site?
Both. A lot of new hires. Some people that have accepted the positions from SRS and SRR, but I'd say the majority of them are coming from outside.
Great. And I thank you for coming in, was it 60 million under price target?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're very excited.
Thank you.
Actually, that big dig, I'm paying for that too.
And we appreciate it.
I'm sorry, David, did I end you too soon?
I'm done.
That's it.
Good.
Thanks for a great presentation and for getting us back on track. Thank you both.
Thank you.
not only we've recovered all that time, we're actually at 3 minutes ahead. Good work, guys. You all must be hungry. So let's be ready to be back in our seats at 12:30. Have a good lunch, everyone. Is everybody